This is Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Obah. We'll begin the return of our program in a few minutes, but I will be remiss if I did not acknowledge the Free University of Virginia students who were on the football team, Devin Chandler, Deshaun Perry, and Lavelle Davis Jr., who lost their lives. This after the suspect seen here was accused of shooting into a bus that returned from a school field trip. The suspect was quickly taken into custody and is facing multiple charges. Of course, the usual thoughts and prayers were uttered by Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, sentiments that ring hollow given his opposition to gun reform. And thanks to the kind of policies on gun reform, or lack thereof, that Governor Youngkin and those of his ilk support, many of whom lost in the midterm elections this year, the families of these individuals you are seeing on your screen now will have one less place at the table at Thanksgiving and every holiday thereafter. How about those thoughts, folks, as we begin the November edition of Fit to Speak? Hello and welcome to Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Obah. So glad to have you with us. The World Cup has started. The extension of the Silver Line to Ashburn, Virginia has finally opened, and the midterms are over. Well, for now at least. So today we'll have a masterclass on what the lessons learned are of the midterms so far, and who I believe is the biggest winner of the daytime talk show genre in a few minutes. We'll get to my commentary in just a second, but first, a little bit of housekeeping. We are back, folks. We are back after an extended summer break, but we weren't too far as we did Fit to Speak from the archives, which included fresh material on the now seemingly defunct student loan relief, and some material on the actually defunct RT America, whose former general manager may give Dan Snyder and Elon Musk a run for their money insofar as running things into the ground and making ridiculous decisions in the process. Anyway, unlike RT America, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the CSE channel, actually still exists. And it is there that you can catch up with all 13 editions of Fit to Speak from the archives, along with all of the regular editions of Fit to Speak. Be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends to do so as well. And I'd like to also encourage you to give the gift of knowledge this holiday season by becoming a paid subscriber on our Substack page. Starting tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day here in the United States until the end of 2022, we are shaving the price of a monthly subscription from $5 a month to $3 a month, and our yearly subscription from $50 a year to $30. Not only will you get member-exclusive articles, including the one that I wrote about President Biden's change to marijuana policy, you will also have the opportunity to take part in an exclusive monthly Zoom forum that I will facilitate. Plus, you will have the satisfaction of directly supporting the production of this program over Common Sense Entertainment Programming and the independent content creators behind said programming, including Damn That's Good, our newest food program, which our entertainment division will be cooking up in the near future. So go to csamedia.substack.com right now and subscribe. You know, folks, when I think about a lot of the things that I have been thankful for over the years, one thing that remains a constant for me has been having a fine education, especially in elementary school. And it was there that I learned about what is called a KWL chart, what I know, what I want to know, and what I've learned. And I thought that it would be fitting here today to break down these past midterms, at least what we have so far. Remember, there's still the matter of the Georgia runoff on December 6th. I thought we would have a little bit of fun today and kind of break this down into these components. So here's what we know. We know that just a few weeks ago, November 8th to be precise, there was something called a midterm election. We also know that, generally speaking, midterm elections are favorable to the party that is not in power. And we also know that with the Supreme Court decision earlier this year on abortion, as well as the conversations on inflation and crime, that those conversations could bring folks out to the polls. But here's what I wanted to know. Given the issues that I mentioned, will there be a red wave? Would those issues actually motivate the electorate to come out to the polls, and who's going to benefit? And if there is a red wave, could Democrats stem their losses? Now, here's what we've learned. For all the talk about the red wave and the predictions from pundits, I saw more waves in my kitchen sink. Why? You can thank the 26th letter of the alphabet. Yes, that alphabet I learned in public school many moons ago, and it's something that Republicans these days call indoctrination. The letter Z. Tufts University estimated that 27% of Gen Z and perhaps higher in battleground states voted, and they voted overwhelmingly for Democrats by nearly a 2-to-1 margin. Indeed, in Florida, where governor and potential 2024 presidential candidate Ron DeSantis won overwhelmingly over former Republican Charlie Crist, Maxwell Frost is heading to the House of Representatives, and he's 25. I've always believed, especially in talking with some of the guests that we've had on this program, that this generation coming up have a real keen understanding of the issues that are going on in our society. They really want to be the change agents, and it gives people like me a lot of hope. Democratic strategist Kristen Foca, who we had on this program after the 2020 election, had this to say about the impact of Gen Z.
I am certainly very thankful that young voters came out this year. I think that, we'll have to dissect this further, but there could be many reasons for that. One of which, also something that has been talked about a lot in, unfortunately, most of our lifetimes, but definitely more recently is like gun safety legislation. So, we did pass some gun safety legislation, of course, not as much as we would like, but we did take a step forward. And I think that that is an issue that, and especially now, we just had another shooting in Colorado Springs. And I think that that actually does drive young voters. That's something that, young people face, schools, social gatherings, concerts, just everything. It's affecting people everywhere. And so I think, I think gun safety and, of course, already said abortion. Hey, we did get some student loan forgiveness. Is that actually going to go through now that a judge blocked it? I'm not
Yeah,
totally
that's
sure
all
what's
up in
happening
the
with
air.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's something else that could have really motivated young voters. So I think that there are several things. I'll be curious to see. I'm not sure what the exit polling is yet for Gen Z voters and what they highlighted as being their top issue. But it makes sense to me that, or also marijuana legislation. That's something else that Joe Biden brought up. Not long before the midterms, and actually in what some statewide candidates were talking about. I know now Senator-elect Fetterman has been vocal about marijuana legalization. So, that could have also helped rally up some young voters. So I think there are a lot of things that are being talked about that hopefully did tap into the hearts and minds of young people. And now that we have really brought them into the electoral system, I hope that it keeps up and that we see similar, if not better, results in 2024. And so I'm very excited, very heartened that Gen Z came out to vote.
The impact that Gen Z have made in these midterms have created such a scare that now you have the likes of Euro Pacific Capital CEO Peter Schiff and others wanting to do away with the 26th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which states, quote, the right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. By the way, I should note that this is the same Peter Schiff who made multiple appearances on RT America and never met gold he didn't like. Make with that information what you will. But there is no doubt about the next lesson learned of the midterms, and that is they were a no good, very bad night for election deniers and extremists, including here at the DMV. I was delighted to see that Virginia's 7th district said yes to Abigail Spanberger and no to Yesli Vega. And then there's Dan Cox in Maryland, who, before eventually conceding to Governor-elect Wes Moore, said this.
We're at a point where it's not looking good, but I can tell you this. Only 50% of the vote is counted. And every single vote from here out are votes mostly cast today. Some of whom were still in line when predetermined statements were made by the media.
This was one of the most delusional statements I've ever heard, and I'll tell you, it's obvious that Dan Cox does not know Maryland as much as he thinks he does, because had he actually been thinking about what he was saying, he would have realized that he had as much chance of defeating Wes Moore as Baker Mayfield has of ever being a Super Bowl winning quarterback. By the way, what was up with him headbutting his teammates a few weeks ago? Guess he was feeling dangerous. Here's another person that should be checked for CTE.
Do you know we're the greatest country in the United States and the world?
Greatest country in the United States in the world. This is the kind of intellectual prowess that nearly 1.9 million people wanted to send to the Senate, a Senate in which Democrats have actually kept their majority and perhaps can expand that pending the outcome of the runoff in Georgia on December 6th. Folks, it may seem that I make fun of Republicans regularly on this program, or that this commentary is bash fest, or that I'm having a little bit of fun at their expense. But really, for anyone who has actually watched 2 years of Fit to Speak, the 2 years that we have done this program, you'll know that the only partisanship that I have as the host of this program is to the truth. And the fact of the matter is that common sense and logic at a certain point have to prevail. They really do. In the years of the Trump administration, stupidity ran amok. Instead of talking about issues of importance, the Trump acolytes and the people who worship the ground that he walks on talked about immigrants taking their jobs, by the way, that most of them will not do, wokeism, cancel culture, banning books, banning critical race theory, censorship on college campuses, flouting COVID guidelines, voting for governors who were apparently satisfied with their citizens freezing to death, and this all while their senator does nothing about it and runs off to Cancun, Mexico, before running back to the United States with his tail between his legs. Given all of this and more, is it any wonder why most Americans are not buying what Republicans are selling? Now, yes, there were questions about the wisdom of the Democrats in terms of employing the Pied Piper strategy in some of these races. And really, that Pied Piper strategy was to elevate the most extreme Republicans so that arguably they're easier to beat. Ultimately, the strategy worked because right now, at least, this is the party of Trump, though that could very well be changing. This front page of the New York Post, not exactly friendly to liberals, had a front page that recalled a classic nursery rhyme. Former White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany said that he should pause his announcement. So much for that. And even Fox seems to be softening on Trump, with Laura Ingraham, who, like Kayleigh, is on the network, saying that the party needs to expand its base. Winsome Sears, the lieutenant governor of Virginia, said that she cannot support him and went on to say, quote, "A true leader understands when they have become a liability. A true leader understands that it's time to step off the stage, and the voters have given us that very clear message." Add that to the chart. The question now becomes, will the Donald Trumpified Republican Party actually heed that message? If history is any indication, as evidenced by the fact that they could not focus in 2020 on winning the Georgia runoff, the answer to that may very well be no. But that could change if the epiphanies that Kayleigh, Laura, and others are having are any indication. There's no doubt that these midterm elections were indeed a repudiation of Trump and his followers that ran. The only inflation in this case were their egos, and during this election cycle, they have been deflated. Hopefully, history will look back at November 8th, 2022 as the beginning of the end of the MAGA movement, a movement that was billed as the silent majority, and that is really about to be mercifully silenced for good. Folks, the Republican Party's chickens, the MAGA Republican Party's chickens, have come home to roost, and that's thanks to no small part to the over 74 million Americans who hitched their wagon to this man on the left of your screen. And when he leaves this earth for good, he'll be remembered as nothing more than P.T. Barnum reincarnated. But there's still time to see the light. Watching films like The Game Is Up, which is available on Amazon Prime Video, is a good start. Makes for great holiday viewing near your fireplace. In all seriousness, though, I will have a link to a review that I did of the film on Fit to Speak from the Archives in the YouTube description below. And if you're somebody who wishes to wallow in denial, stupidity, and ignorance, go right ahead and do so. You'll find yourself in great company this Thanksgiving with the MAGA wing of the Republican Party and Baker Mayfield. Loserville. One of the biggest winners of daytime talk television is Drew Barrymore. In past editions of this program, and more recently on Fit to Speak from the Archives, I predicted that her daytime talk show would become one of the biggest beneficiaries of Ellen DeGeneres' departure from the daytime landscape. Drew Barrymore has brought an incredible level of authenticity, absolutely incredible authenticity to the daytime genre, as evidenced by the fact that her talk show has been renewed for a second season. The person who will benefit greatly from Ellen closing up shop, besides Kelly Clarkson, who will be inheriting Ellen's time slot in many markets, is Drew Barrymore. I have been incredibly impressed with Drew's daytime talk show, which returns this fall for a second season, and the folks behind the Emmys agree with my assessment as the show and Drew herself have been nominated. Another possible ratings beneficiary could be Drew Barrymore, whose show is returning for a third season that will be split into 2 half-hours in most markets. Who knows whether or not that's going to work, but one thing's for sure, I remain very bullish on Drew's longevity in the genre. And boy, was I right not to be bearish on Drew Barrymore's show, as her ratings are up 60%, yes, 60% from last year. I'm truly delighted about the fact that, well, besides being right, that Drew's success is being rewarded. And considering that her talk show was the only one to launch during the novel coronavirus pandemic, I think that success is even more impressive, and I think that is something definitely worth being thankful for. The most recent iteration of the Washington Post's social media policy states that their journalists relinquish some of the personal privileges of private citizens. Somebody better tell senior editor Mark Fisher about that, who wrote this tweet assailing the student journalists of the University of Virginia for having the audacity to gather information. You know, the kind of stuff that journalists should be doing. It is absolutely outrageous that an editor of the newspaper of record in the United States, at a time in which trust in the media is at a bit of a low, would tweet this. People of his position should want to elevate the work and encourage, not denigrate the next generation of journalists. You know, journalists are, after all, the first draft of history. And I would think that he'd want to show some humanity to these student journalists in doing their work, even in the most difficult of circumstances. Not to mention that apparently he's not aware that his own employer has got a tip line. Who knows, but what I do know is that the tweet was up for less than 24 hours before it was deleted. By the way, with apologies to Judge Judy Scheindlin, tweets fade, screenshots are forever. Fisher later tweeted that his since-deleted tweet did not meet his employer's social media standards, and that the tweet was inappropriate and snide. While I'm delighted Fisher has seen the light, probably more so because of the fact that his employer is no stranger to Twitter meltdowns, perhaps he can enlighten us as to what he believes student journalists should be doing. So, Mr. Fisher, if you do come across this program, do reach out to us on our social media accounts that exist at the end of the program, that actually exist, that is. And please do come on this program and delight us with your knowledge as to what student journalists should be doing. I'll be waiting. But for now, if I were assigning letter grades, Mr. Fisher is very deserving of the first letter of his surname. Folks, we continue to need your help in finding broadcast industry professional and University of Maryland alum Terrence Woods, who's been missing since October of 2018. If you have any information as to Terrence's whereabouts, you're asked to call the Idaho County Sheriff's Office at 208-983-1100. That's 208-983-1100. You can also reach out to us on our social media accounts, which you'll see at the end of the program, and we'll pass any information along to them. And thank you so much for watching. Listen, there's going to be a lot more where that came from, so you better stay tuned to catch it all. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media accounts for more information, including all of the bonus content that you'll see from today's show. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell on our YouTube channel so that you do not miss any of our episodes. And please go on Substack or Patreon and support all of the work that we do here. Support independent content creators. And until next time, I'm Eugene Obah, and remember, we will not be silenced.